be a working lunch. Yes. Okay, so we'll start our session for this afternoon. It's again, it's a working lunch. I'd like to call our presenter speakers for this session. Sorry, I have to cut Jess. You have to join me in my diet program. I'll call our presenters for today. Representing Sea Oil Foundation. Sea Oil is a gasoline company in the Philippines, and they've been practicing bridging leadership in implementing CSR programs. Mr. Jess Lorenzo is the Executive Director, President of Sea Oil Foundation, ED, and he's also the son of one of Batch 1, Mayor Sonia Lorenzo, no, Batch 1 of the Bridging Leadership Fellows. No, who, Jess, dito tayo, front. I would also like to call the President of Ayala Foundation, who also did Bangsamoro Youth Leader Program, Bridging Leadership, Mr. Roel Maranan. No? And we also got a Bridging Leadership Fellow, who's also an Eisenhower Fellow as well. And he's one of the first, one of only two. That's why we're underrepresented in the Bridging Leadership practice. One of only two business practitioners among the fellowship program. Si Michael Tulim of Mega White Sardine is one of them. Edwin To is owns a grocery chain in Zamboanga called Budget Wise, and has implemented bridging leadership in doing business in the course of his business. Why am I standing up? I forgot my seat. So anyway, we will start with Mr. Maranan. Maybe I should sit here like Prof. Nieves. And we'll show a video of a program that they implemented. It's called the Bangsamoro Youth Leadership Program. It's you'll see how Ayala Corporation, Ayala through the foundation, is involved in various programs in Mindanao. So can we show the video now, please?
Communities ng Bangsamoro, ng society ng Bangsamoro. Tingin ko dapat actively mag-involve sila sa not only in the affair of government, even yung community engagement.
Tangan ko ang pagkakataon, gumawa ng mabuti at tama para sa sarili at sa kapwa. Mga problema at tanong, pakikinggan at bibigyang tugon.
Based from the scanning doon sa barangay na yon, ang main problems is yung basura. Yung hindi proper yung pagtatapon nila ng basura kung saan-saan lang.
We found out na 1 out of 5 na mga households dito ay talagang pangingisda yung talagang pangunahing income nila. So, lumabas talaga sa pre-assessment namin na kailangan talaga nila ng opportunity in terms of livelihood.
Yun pa lang, nagiging isa sa mga dahilan kung bakit hindi maganda ang quality ng bean. Because yung sa parati in conflict ang communities, especially ng Patikul.
Yung pinaka-struggle talaga dito, lalo na from Bubuan, is yung pagpunta ng mga bata dito, wala silang masakyan. Kahit na tag-araw, nababasa sila. Yun pala, nalulunod sila. Kasi siguro sa sobrang dami nila sa isang maliit na bangka, kaya hindi sila magkasya. Yung iba naman, nagiging cause ng absenteeism is yung wala silang masakyan na dito.
Ang nangyari noon, pagbalik ko, tinignan ko ang sitwasyon. Tapos, nirelate ko yung sitwasyon ng mga bata sa peace and security situation sa Basilan. Doon nabuo namin. Sabi ko, baka kailangan thoroughly engage yung mga kabataan, lalong-lalo na yung mga bata. Kasi parang nawawalan ng klaro at concrete program yung government or even yung local government.
For me, BYLP Leadcom is a big help. Kasi nga po, other than sa nakatulong kami dun sa mga beneficiary, marami yung nabago yung buhay.
Ayala Foundation came up with leadership communities as an expression of our belief that young people can make a difference in their respective communities. All they need are people who will believe in them and will give them the needed push to become better versions of themselves.
Maiinganyo yung mga kabataan natin na instead na humawak po sila ng baril at makisali sa paggamit ng droga, ay tutulong na lamang po sila sa kanilang mga nanay at sa kanilang mga tatay.
Sabihin ng mga damamanteri ay mga kabataang naghahanap buhay para may income. Alhamdulillah, kami po ay nagpapasalamat kasi kahit papaano may income na po kami.
Malaking tulong talaga sa amin na itong bangka ng karunungan ay naibigay dito sa Languyan Central Elementary School. Baka this year, zero absenteeism na kami at saka wala nang drop out.
Ito po yung kauna-unahan na tulong na dumating po sa amin na makita po o mapansin ang aming kabuhayan.
I believe na every youth leader sa Bangsamoro homeland ay merong capacity to empower, to enlighten, and to develop each story of the youth.
Lang yung kabuhayan ang binibigay namin sa kanila natin. Alam mo yung essence ng yung hope na mag-i-improve yung buhay nila in the future.
Okay, so that's the BYLP Leadcom program of Ayala Foundation, and maybe I can segue. We start the session with asking Mr. Moranan here, why BYLP? I mean, this Bangsamoro. It's kind of far away from where your operations is. Huh? So.
Well, thank you, Ricky. Really, it's a challenge now because I'm competing with the best part of the program, which is the lunch. But kidding aside, I think you will find this likewise appetizing or enhance your appetite. The first question is that why Mindanao? Actually, backtrack a little. As early as 1960s, Ayala has always been in Mindanao. As we speak, for those who were born or who might have heard the story, as early as 60s and up to now, as I speak to you, there are programs that that Mindanao is benefiting from. For example, the cattle raising research was actually funded by Ayala Foundation as early as, or Filipinas Foundation during those times. And then the much famous Mindanao silk and cotton, sometime like in the 2000, were also supported by the foundation. So the affair with the Mindanao has always been there. And fortunately for me, years ago when I came into the foundation, I am not from the area, But my love affair with Mindanao started when I used to be with Globe Telecom. So I was the first one who went to Zamboanga and put up your customer service area or office in Zamboanga. I also had, or before that, I also had your feed mill in Zamboanga with Vitarich Company. And then I also offered you flour when I used to be in the flour industry. So on my fourth try of going back to Basilan, I did not tell my wife I was going to Basilan for obvious reasons. So I told her I was going to Boracay. So that's what I told the governor, Mujib, when I went there. I said, sir, just make sure that I come home safe and sound. So 4 years thereafter, just 2 weeks ago when I was in Cotabato, he exactly shares the story to all, especially with the other external stakeholders, simply because he says, if people like us here in this room or outside are bold enough to join them and be part of the transformation they're going to, the least that they can do is make sure that they are open, they keep us safe, and they also fulfill their respective roles. So this thing actually started in Basilan. And fortunately for me, I saw our key stakeholders here. It's not solely Ayala Foundation, but it's a partnership obviously with our good governor Mujib Hataman of Autonomous Region of Muslim Mindanao, and the Eisenhower Fellows, of course, with Ernie Garilao here, and of course Aye Hernandez, who's outside, um, and the other fellows who were with him. So I was fortunate to be part of the launch in Basilan. Before the graduation in Basilan, the good governor had a personal request. He said, it seems to be working very well, and I cannot just put it in Basilan. Long story short, he said, what do you think if we will open it up to Bangsamoro? I said, Gov, if you're open, if you're game, taya kami dyan. We will get into the Bangsamoro Young Leaders Program. So, 2 weeks ago, we were just in Cotabato. We had our BYLP program that finished. Unfortunately, because of the situation in Marawi, we just had 5 programs which sort of had a delay. But we were very happy to note some of these were highlighted here, and actually we have documented this in a book entitled Crescent of Hopes to highlight the success stories of BYLP. It's not our success story. The storyline really is these cohorts went back to the respective communities, came out with their own community-based initiatives, and it is the community that has been working together to support all these initiatives. So sustainability is not our objective. It becomes a byproduct because it is the community that defines what is suitable for them, their compelling needs, and therefore they are the ones coming out with the proper solutions. We are just enabling them. Okay, we do not have the answers. Sorry to disappoint you. I'm not going to share that. We don't have the secret formula. It is the community. So if you will ask us right now, Ayala Foundation, our thrust really is community development. We would want to deem ourselves to become experts and partners of choice when it comes to community development. So this is one of those initiative which is under the umbrella of community leadership. We're not even using youth leadership anymore as a main handle, simply because we don't want it to be a positive bias, because every community would really have to define the resources they have. It may be the senior citizens, it may be the ladies. Normally, you are the prime source there, and then of course the youth will be there. LGBT, we don't mind. It will be the community who is going to define really the resources for whom to take up the leadership initiative.
So you see, I mean, even in business, it's about the impact of business to community. Something like impact investment. You don't only think about your business owners. But my question probably to link it to the bridging leadership is, I remember this was broached to me by Ayi Hernandez. And what did you find about Ayi as a bridging leader to help you craft that program? And what was the sustainability in your program? What was that mechanism that really would motivate the community to go on with the project?
Well, first, I think I and the rest of the team really had an objective, no? The objective was somewhat clear that it's really empowering the community, particularly the youth at that point in time. And I found it very aligned to what we were, or at least I was getting into. That was practically almost 4 years ago, and they were also open in saying they know something, but they wanted a program that would really be able to find its way and navigate within the community. And for me, I think the openness, the adaptability of such mindset is very important. And he was manifesting that during the whole discussion. And that's where a lot of the collaboration came in, no? And to top it all, we had milestone measurements that we were talking about. But because at any point in time, a program might be good in terms of concept, but by the time you implement it, a lot of it would need a lot of calibration, adjustments, and I think that's where I think the teamwork was coming in into fruition, no? Because everybody was willing to adjust, and therefore it was easy for all the stakeholders. Lahat may taya, lahat may responsibilidad, lahat may accountability. And I think to top it all, the measurement aspect of the program, we're not only looking after how many will graduate, but really the program coming out, are they the programs that would really um, help the respective communities? And again, the proof of the concept was coming out. Those programs that were surfaced, that were adopted, as we speak right now, some of which have really gained so much traction. So other stakeholders are coming in, not beyond the original ones who ventured into it.
So I mean, measurements really important. So we'll get into that a little bit later. But let's go on to the other presenters. Uh, Edwin, no, I've seen you so years ago, parang tagal na, no, in the bridging leadership program, and at that time you were really into the grocery chain of groceries in Zamboanga. How did the bridging leadership, or how did the community as its role, it's how Ayala sees it, no? In your case, how does the community play a major portion of your decision making in terms of running your business?
So first, a background, no? I graduated from a business course from LaSalle. And then later on, we opened our first business 2005. And then later on, I got involved with the BL, Bridging Leaders, on 2012. So just to put a time frame, no? So after 2012, we have our siege in Zamboanga in 2013. And then I became the Zamboanga Chamber President 2014 to 2017. So that's how. So where did BL play a role? Basically, the bridging leaders allowed me to put things in context. So as a commerce, all we think of as a businessman is return on investment. But because of going through the bridging leadership program, it changed my perspective. We look in now as the outcome, the impact, the community impact of our investment already. So somehow that changed the way I look at things. Before BL, we look at leaders as charismatic. They have to have integrity. Through BL, you just realize those are just elements of a good leader. But through bridging leadership, first we have to find ourselves through ownership, and then we use the framework called co-create, co-own, and then we co-create. So that's how bridging leaders help me in my personal capacity first, and then they gave us a lot of tools, stakeholder investment, stakeholder mapping, and then they gave us tools on how to address those stakeholders. So in business, normally we don't look at these things. We just look at the income, the potential. We just go in and invest. So because of bridging leaders, it allows us to first the social preparation, what will be the impact, and how far we want to help the community. So it really helped me a lot on my business.
So you see, guys, so business is not all about money. Now
But
we have hearts.
The BL somehow changed the perspective because of because of the deep dive, the deepening. Why are we opening businesses? No? So the answers will come out later on the why. So, which I am very appreciative of the BL.
Thank you. Now with Jess, I'm sure you were kind of influenced also by your mother, the late Sonia Lorenzo, who did a very good job in when she was mayor of San Isidro. No? Yeah, she actually brought up the from a low rated municipality to a top rated one using the BL program. Now, how did that influence you after she passed? No, how did that influence your way of doing business or working, particularly in sea oil?
Siguro as a personal note, I started as a program officer with my mom. Ako yung utusan niya pag kami nagka-craft ng program, and it was a constant grounding experience of how to translate things on the ground, what works, what doesn't, how do you create buy-in, and so on and so forth. But I was able to gain a lot of systems perspective when I joined Zwilig Family Foundation with Prof. Ernie. Doon ko na-meet sina Doc Jing, si Asik Dumama, madalas kami nag-uusap with DOH, and that's where I learned scale. No? But, and my journey in bridging leadership, I guess, crystallized with Zwilig. When I came into sea oil was in a transition, and it was the second generation, and they started with a donor organization with an integrity pledge with Makati Business Club. So they're not allowed to give bribes, but they needed to be able to gain a lasting relationship with local leaders. So they asked me, Jess, our donations are not working. What can we do? I said, have you tried co-owning the issues on the ground? You really cannot gain mileage out of that. So my perspective when I was invited with Sea Oil was really to just retool what they have. And sabi ko, there's no two ways about it. You really have to journey. And from there, they said, what do you need? I said, I need my own boards. That's why I invited Prof. Ernie and Nene Guevara of Sinergia. When we had lunch, Prof. Ernie said, wag ka na mag-health kasi Zwilig na yon. Sabi ni Nene, wag ka na mag-education kasi Sinergia na yon. Sabi ko, ano, with these two luminaries, I said, Ma'am, sir, what will I do? Why don't you go into agri? I don't know anything about agri. You will learn. But having yun nga, sabi ni Edwin, you put us into the water, we learn to swim to the shore. But we found out in agriculture, it's really more fragmented than health. We found out that our perspective in agriculture is very much 20, 30 years ago. It's very sectoral, which means it's crop-based. When you ask the MAO or Municipal Agriculture Officer, Sir, ano ba yung effect sa hunger nito? Trabaho yan ng MSWD, hindi namin trabaho yan. No? Marami nang umuupo dito. But this is now the context that we are coming in. And then, just to put more context into it, in health, you have the BHWs who have been constantly being trained by DOH so that when you download the program, they seem to have some sort of capacity. In agriculture, you don't have that. You only have the MAO and you have the extension worker. But suddenly, you have a lot more population who's a lot more involved. Unlike in health, the pregnant women is only a particular sector. The drug dependence is another sector. But agriculture is wider. So and then you have the investments of the LGU is not only regurgitated on a year-to-year basis. It is dependent on what DA is downloading. Sadly. So when we come into this kind of context, we really cling on to BL. We don't say that we provide answers. What we do is we try to get to know the questions and dig deeper into the whys of things. But we found out one thing, sample. The reason why farmers are hungry, even if they are working hard, is not because they are lazy, but because they simply do not have enough income with their expenses. The average rice-producing farmer only earns about 70% to sustain the family expenses. A corn producer, something like, I don't have my figures with me, 30 to 40. And a coconut, even less. And from what we heard, mga fish farmers, even less. With this context now, mababaon sa utang. We had this family farm. It's an sustainable organic agriculture. We saw one framework launched by United Nations, UNDP, that really the answer to hunger is farming, but sustainable organic agriculture. That it's it's pretty. So the rest is history. It's pretty much the same story as any be a leader. We tried piloting it with 7 LGUs, and it worked. Believe it or not, in just the first 6 months, we gained mileage. 85% of the families that participated are already hunger free. And this is measured. We measure their consumption, their inputs versus their outputs. But the problem is really shifting the perspective. That's where the BL comes in. There's no shortcuts also. We did some tweaking on the BL. For example, with what I've learned in Zwilig, we, we purposely aligned our tools similar to what Zwilig did because they already are scaling with DOH. Para pag nakita ng mga mayors, ng mga ground leaders, oh, I'm familiar with this. This is the same as the DOH, MLGP, and the Zwilig. I said, sir, yes, pareho lang, kaya lang iba yung stakeholders. The change models have the same iconography, the trainings are very similar, but the challenges are different. No? But we found out that we really have to activate the grassroots and do a community a development perspective also. On the corporate side, there's even a greater challenge. I just had a meeting this morning. Our challenge is really the turnover. And in BL, you really have to invest in capacity with your team. Onboarding to me is a big problem because after I onboard them, some bigger development corporation or development organization has a higher salary. Next thing I know, they're out of my office. So please don't pirate my staff. It's our lifeline. It's not really the money that you bring in. It's really the operator that matters. So we've created a lot of innovative ways to shorten the onboarding for our operators. When you go to my office, I have this as big as this wall. We call it the BL reflection board. It's magnetic. And we do competency-based assessment of our operators. So for example, in a given week, all the issues that they go through, we have a business meeting, but after the business meeting, we have a reflection period where they would think of how did they exercise stakeholder management in their portfolio. Is it positive or negative? It's not so much important whether it's always positive, it's always negative. The point is that they're grounding their competencies. And I think in BL, it's really a matter of grounding our competencies constantly. We just need to be innovative in doing this. And this is something that we have committed ourselves in COL Foundation, that our KRAs and our competencies are getting sharply aligned on a year-to-year basis. All our engagements are impact-based because my principles are return on investment oriented. So we have a covenant with our partners that we sign that we do an impact study even at our cost every year. It's not on the end of the period, but on a year basis, year to year, so that we can tweak our strategies. In Puerto Princesa, we just closed our account where Puerto Princesa, it's on its way to becoming the first ZOD city in Mimaropa. But before that, they were having problems because they were just downloading the water closets. We had to do a triggering and pre-triggering together with the communities. But I think what is important here is that we need to be able to work on an impact level. We think that it's only the corporate that wants the impact. But once you can communicate the impact well, magugulat po kayo kung ano yung nararamdaman ng mayor, ay pwede palang gawin yan. No? But it's not enough to make the impact very technical, but more put a comms part on your impact. So our tools are also communicated because our target stakeholders need a certain lens in trying to understand the impact. So that's about it with our journey.
Well, you know, that's it about business, no? It's not bridging leadership, it's actually stakeholder management. We use a different term to it, but the process really is a bridging leadership process. Now, the thing with business is sometimes even if you do good, the perception of the public is that you're doing good for a reason. So I'll ask Ruel, how do you, on the co-ownership side, no, when you try to get a partnership with the community, how do you convince them that we're sincere in what we're doing? We're just not only greenwashing. And I remember that the Ayala Foundation was also talking about social return on investment. No, the business and impact investment, especially is talking about SROI. And how does Ayala Corporation to the foundation see this aspect?
Well, thank you, Ricky. First and foremost, we do not force ourselves into communities. We go, for us, stakeholder mapping is very important. The openness of the local communities or the communities we want to partner is something that we have to determine from the onset. Because to fight blinders or to take out blinders will be such a waste of time. So for me, I came from the business sector for the longest time, and I know how difficult it is even to meet LGU officials. I came from a lot of I came from Globe, I came from Manila Water, so I know how it is to be queuing with LGU partners because they think you're doing business despite you're doing something very basic. It's the other way around now. When I say Ayala and my family name is Foundation, oh, doors open, and LGU officials go out of the rooms even unannounced, even if I go to localities, they're the ones running after me. Now, what I realize is that obviously they know for a fact my very substance is not business orientation. But I always tell them, however, we have to understand that we have to comply with business disciplines which are applicable for our engagement. And what is that? We have to define our roles, our responsibilities, so that we will know our accountabilities. Very important. Now, I like exactly what I heard that I am the corporate social arm of the Ayala Group of companies. And by doing so, people would tend to think, and I think this was the story I had when I went to Basilan. All of a sudden, our good governor brought me to the room and he said to all his secretaries, "Oh, this is Mr. Maranan. You can already ask him whatever you want." So I had a lady who was on her orientation. She looked at me. She goes, "But you're just the Ayala Foundation president. You're not the president of the country." So I said, "Yeah, I also realized that." But kidding aside, I think that is where we, within this kind of community, really get to disarm and really get the openness and the trust of our communities because they know our very essence. Now, I think what reveals are those who would have other agenda. That's why for me, it's always I tell them, if they start asking me, "Aren't you related to this business unit?" I just tell them, you have to define what exactly you need. I am not the one who's going to attend to that. Long story short, I can act as a connector convener for you, but be mindful, it is not the foundation who is going to take stock of that. I have to delineate where I draw the line. Similarly, after almost 3 years, finally, within the group, I agreed to convene all the CSR practitioners within Ayala Group of Companies. Because I said, now I am personally convinced. I mentioned to the brothers when they told me that, I said, no, let me immerse myself. Because I cannot get into it just for the sake of putting up a council. So 3 years thereafter, finally, I was able to get them all together, and I just told them, we only have two objectives. Let's harness what is common and keep what is peculiar to your respective business units, because I do not want to compete at all. And we have to be very clear to our communities so that they would know where I start and where I will end, and where you will start and you will end. So if it's clear amongst us, finally we came out in Ayala, we call it Community for Social Impact. So all my members there, I have an ex-com, I also have members, we call them the community movers. So we're not about to have summits and everything. I told them, next year, it will be a short of a trade fair that will showcase the communities, their services, their products. It is not us who will take the center stage. So we are now connecting, and that's why we are really thoroughly learning from one another amongst the community stakeholders, because we have to teach them all these BL concept structures put into action. But I think what I am also hearing is the adaptability is very important, because we can, the tendency, if you are coming in like in our case, 185 years old as a conglomerate, 57 years old as a foundation, you might start thinking you know everything. Again, very disappointing. No. The only question we have that hangs on our head is simple. How do we make ourselves relevant? That is the question. Now, in the conglomerate, I do not give my services for free. Excuse me. I tell my colleagues, the CEOs, I think you need more of the foundation than we need you. So, for example, I partner with them. Fortunately for us, we cover the museum. Well, we have the expertise in terms of curating art pieces. So some of our business units have, due to mergers and acquisitions, would have voluminous art collections. And I tell them, do you even know your art collection? Do you know that you can capitalize it? Of course, their answer is no, because that's not their core competency. Then we have that. I can do it for you for a fee. But we're above board. Now, because I am of value to them, that's the time I say, now, do you want to donate? I still accept donation. I'm not close to that. They're more magnanimous now. Because internally, I put value or I add value to them. But externally, I always make it a point when I introduce myself, yes, I'm Ayala, but my family name is Foundation. So that they would know. Okay, very clear because that's the time they realize. And again, from Mindanao, I was just telling them, sir, we needed to improve telecommunications. So I just met them, asked them to sit down, and they agreed. So I'm out of it. See, so they go their merry way, and we go our merry way. So I use technology a lot in terms of the foundation now. We're disrupting education. Like in Manila, we just launched fairly recently. We're not into the formal K to K6, but because the problem of Manila is out-of-school youth, we said, we are not going to wait for the out-of-school youth to realize the value of education. We'll disrupt them. We went in their comfort zone, yung tambayan nila, sa sari-sari store. Kasi ang concept ko, sabi ko sa mayor, hindi pupunta yan sa barangay ngayon. Because pag pumunta ka sa barangay, dalawa lang yan, natokhang ka o anong problema, di ba? Now, where they are, we go there, we use technology, we use iPads, we conduct sessions. That's why, nung una, maraming cynical about it. After we launch, after 2-3 weeks now, we have so much and we're being called now, both by Rotary and the other stakeholders, can we scale up? Because they now like the idea. Why? Because these are people who just need that glimmer of hope amidst all the situation. We're not over-promising. That's why I always tell them, and even amongst my teammates, be careful for what you ask for. I might just give it. Question is, what are you willing to give in return? So, that's always a challenge to all the stakeholders. So now, they're all careful, my colleagues, and by the way, my talents, I push them out. I don't keep them. No, really, you know why? Because I want to see disciples, especially in our conglomerate. More disciples out there talking of our discipline, it's easier to get things done. So, I am not a talent recipient anymore. Medyo soplado ako because I tell them, sir, I'm tired, I want a balance in life. I want to go to the foundation. I said, I'll give you a better deal. I'll give you a certificate in the spa. You just go to the spa and relax. Do not go to the foundation because it's a full-time job. My God, there is no pastime. Here, it has to be passion, compassion with action. Why? The barometer is simple. When you make a commitment, it is a community, live people waiting for action and results. Business, you can play and tweak around with numbers. You can project. But with people, you cannot project because you're talking of lives. And that's why I tell them, if you know what I'm talking about, then you have the very business to be part of the foundation. If not, please spare us. Because I cannot overcommit or promise to you that it will be a life that, will be fun for you. But if you have what it takes,
it's going to be a very meaningful and purposeful journey. That's it.
Thank you. Very well said. So, that's it actually contributes to the co-ownership process of dialogue and convening. I mean, before you can even hold the dialogue, you have to convene them, and we're very artistic in the business sector when it comes to convening. I give you something, but you have to give me something too. No, we're very good negotiators. But yeah, but Prof. Nieves is going to scold me if I mention negotiation without doing dialogue first. But anyway, Edwin, during our last discussion, we had an FGD, said that he's expanding in Zamboanga. It's difficult to expand in the Zamboanga Peninsula, and so you're talking about a chain of grocery stores. So you said you'll be using also the framework when you go in the expansion. Like for example, possibility of putting up a grocery store. Sorry, I'm announcing it before in Isabela in Basilan. So can you?
Basically, that's the ultimate goal. No? So that's why if you look back, 2012 was where I finished the BL program. But it won't happen overnight. It will take us some time to understand the whole concept, practice it in our own little ways in our department. So the furthest we can go was we went to EPIL. As mentioned, we engaged the mayor. We have to ask them what do you think it would be nice if we open here? So we have to engage them before we even go in, and then we have to. In our BL, there's a project called we assess our connection, our capital. So again, the military. Earlier, you were asked how involved, how beneficial. It helps if we know the stakeholder. We know the military. We know the LGU. We know the local players. That's where the BL will open up our doors. Without BL, I think I'll just go in and then get my surf burn and say cancel. So because of BL, we can now open one store a year. Okay, we are not afraid to dream that far. And then how do we do that? We bring that BL into our department, into our office. Just yesterday we just finished one. I said we want to open one per year. But 2012, 2011, I might get involved, active involvement in Rotary. Can we push it a little? They themselves said they want to push it up a little. So they will now by 2020, we try to open two. And I always remind them at this point in time, or the ultimate goal is to open in Basilan. Because that's where the true test of our leaders and the challenge, no, BL will tell us that it's really leadership is we commit our life. So that's a true challenge talaga. So, and then because of the framework, it also humbles us. Because we know it's going to be very difficult. So the co-ownership I create is with my people, with the workforce, with the department heads. And then right now, it's already them. I have been telling them the last 2 years, I cannot do it alone. The owners, kung kami man, if we're the investor, we're the owner. We cannot do it alone. So we have to make them understand we need the leader, department head should co-create with us. And now we're on our way there. And personally, I don't think we can get there without the BL tools. It's out there. So it's possible for they use it. That's why my benefit, although just two of us, they use it for community. I use it for the business sector. But at the end of the day, right now, what we look at is we go there, we're enabler. We're now looking for the one we open in Barangay Ayala, not the rich Ayala, the Barangay Ayala. I dedicate that to your boss, Ayala. So we're going to go there. We're going to go to the agricultural area. We become an enabler now. We provide decent work with decent pay. That's what we tell our people. No, we provide them decent life. So we can proudly say we're the only retailer in Zamboanga paying basic pay. We provide all the government benefit. Because we look beyond the one store already. We look at the whole community. We are not a store anymore. We are a community development. We develop leaders. We develop the whole community. And the challenge, I told our staff, is the moment we open, we should reduce the crime rate. We should, because we're well lighted, they don't have to, we reduce the accident. The one we open in Bayaranga Ayala, it will take them 1 hour to go to town. Not well lighted. Now we open, the kids, a few days ago, a kid came over. Thank you, sir. Can I have your picture? Why? Because you open a store in Ayala. It's 1 hour away. So they just come forward, no? So that's my experience when it comes to BL.
So well, we have 3 minutes left, so I'll probably wrap it up. Well, in the business sector, everybody thinks that we work with numbers, I also came from the business sector, so and it's all about income. But nowadays, because of what's happening globally and in the environment, we've changed the way we look at our business, and we changed the way we look at our communities. So probably we can give a minute each to close this out, to closing statement on how does uh, how does the bridging leaders, how what will the bridging leadership, the framework of ownership, co-ownership, and co-creation play in the role of the business as you move on towards meeting the challenges of these times?
Most of the people in the room are BL operators. So from a business perspective, what I would think, because I also belong to the expansion group of Sea Oil in the in the depot development and the port development, what we bring to the corporate that they don't have is stakeholder management. Most of the high level stakeholder operators that I've seen are BL proficient. Most of the people that I meet in the corporate are very much bottom line oriented, and it's singular. Sadly, sad to say, it's very, very linear. When you bring in a stakeholder perspective, nawiwindang sila sa simula, but when they realize that you have to operate from a stakeholder perspective because of the different interests, suddenly you get their interest. And it is in that perspective that you can bring in the values of the corporation. When you come into a particular area, do you become just an extractive organization, or do we leave behind something more lasting with the community? My mandate right now is to improve the lives of wherever we are. It's going to be a branding challenge for Sea Oil because it's not as big as Ayala. But the principals now are saying, oh, how do we do that? Otherwise, anything less than that it's no good. It's not enough to earn money. It's really just uplifting the lives. And that would mean impact based. The return on the investment would be impact. But the return on investment can also be translated to risks because risks are very much language in the business sector. That once you go in as a stakeholder perspective, the risks are also minimized. So I think that's a good perspective when you start working with corporate benefactors and they just want to talk about donations. You talk to them about impact, and suddenly you talk to them about reducing the risks in a particular area. So I think a good way forward is when you try to put in a stakeholder perspective and develop that within a corporation, you're not only helping them in the bottom line, but you're helping them in many ways.
Okay. So for me, as a private citizen, as a player in Zamboanga, what I can do as a private economic sector, business sector, is to basically exercise what I learned in BL and make them become aware. Later on, people will always ask why. At this point, why are we expanding all over the city? So in the future, hopefully, once we have 10 branches, 9 in Region 9, they will start asking how we did it. And that's the time we can share the BL experience. Because we don't want to be very bookish. It's BL, it's BL. They don't. So basically, just keep on expanding. So how did you do it? Now we can share the BL story behind how we are able to expand.
Okay, quickly. You are all BL gurus, so I won't speak of the concept. I think I'll purpose a little. I'll talk about really what's important for us that sustained us for the 185 years and hopefully more years, and 57 in the foundation and hopefully more. Long story short, core values. I believe anything and everything that you have in BL could be taught, could be learned, relearned, but values you can never compromise. Number one, values are universal. And I think when you speak of integrity, it's a universal language, it's a universal value. It's either you have it or you don't. The teamwork, the communication, our drive for national development, our desire to improve ourselves in the process. And I think these are what we never and should never compromise at all, and look for all our stakeholders. And by doing so, I believe that the BL as a framework, as a concept, as a lifestyle, as I would say, is something that continuously be anchored if we have those core values intact amongst all our stakeholders. So that's it.
Thank you. Unfortunately, we have no more time for questions. If you have questions, we can later on ask it as we go on to the open forum a little later on. Hopefully, they'll still be here. No? But our next speaker will be here, will be converting again this room. But before that, we'd like to thank our very insightful panel led by the president of Ayala Foundation, Mr. Roel Maranan. Budget-wise, Edwin To, and Sea Oil Foundation, Jesse Lorenzo. Mind you guys, business is not all about money. We also have the big heart. Thank you.
The next session will be the sharing of bridging leadership in the security sector. And we have no less than the Chief of Staff of the Armed Forces of the Philippines who will be sharing it with us. So right now we take a 5 to 10 minute break because we're going to convert the room into a big room again, and our guest speaker is also having his lunch. So in about 10 minutes, we should all come back and have take our places, and we'll have our second to the last session for the day.